Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Deathedge's Wrestling Corner. Hopefully by the time this is uploaded, episode 4 will also be uploaded. I'm not going to put any of the blame on YouTube, even though YouTube has pulled crap the YouTube uploading has been crappy in the past, but this is a pretty severe combination of Internet Explorer problems and my power going out on the third attempt. And it looks like it might mess up again. I'm not sure. I'll check it at the end of the episode and hopefully have a positive report. But yeah, this is just a quick little note. Sometimes on YouTube, for whatever reason, the upload time will continuously start going up and up and up and up, and your video will never upload any further. And when that happens, based on both what I've read and what I've gone through, you're basically screwed. Game over. Restart. Refresh. Upload again. That's all you can really do. Just a warning to anyone who plans on uploading videos in the future. Now then, today is, of course, Sunday, and I am going to be honest, I've had a little bit of trouble figuring out exactly what I'm going to do on Sunday. Because Tuesday, I plan on doing a news show, covering and giving my opinions on news and maybe even the going-ons of Raw and SmackDown in TNA that I did not get into during my recaps of those shows. However, I do continue planning on doing that, but that means I can't do that with the Sunday show. Because it would just be weird to have two episodes dedicated to news, at least to me. Maybe it's not weird to you guys, but it would be for me. So I begin thinking, what if I just decide to pull kind of a wrestle crap and just cover stupid wrestling related things. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to be covering like bad angles, although I might in the future. But today, I'm actually covering a silly internet article. And my phone is ringing, and I really hope it isn't anything important, because I am not stopping this recording right now. Anyway, I'm sorry, kind of unimportant. I don't think you can hear it in the background, but just in case you could. I doubt you can, though, because apparently my mic can't even pick up at NES music that's blaring through my headphones, which I thought was kind of funny. I apologize for the audio thing, again, in my previous video, but oh well. Anyway, I was originally thinking about talking about the AJ Styles Daniels Kazarian angle more, but I realized that that's just okay, never mind. I didn't realize it, but I thoroughly went through that during my TNA Impact recap. I went over what I don't like about it and all that stuff. So I began trying to think of something new to cover, something different. And then I checked WWE.com and saw an article entitled Monday Night Raw vs. The World. Basically, Vince has already decided, or WWE.com at least, because who knows, Vince might not have ordered this story, but they've decided to go ahead and start flaunting their egos. And they are actually comparing themselves to several classic television shows, the best of all time. And I'm just going to run through this and say what's stupid about it, although I think it's pretty obvious. A lot of these shows that WWE's comparing themselves to, their comparisons just get downright silly at times. Now, what I'm going to do for this, I'm not going to name shows that they deliberately left off the list, because that's what most of the articles I've seen talking about this, because I went ahead and looked up a few things right quick. That's what most of them focus on, the fact that they didn't compare themselves to soap operas and all that stuff, which would have been the perfect comparison, because, you know, pro wrestling, soap opera for men. I really hate that comparison sometimes. And the reason I really hate it is because I know it's a pretty accurate one, especially with WWE. But what I am going to do, I'm just going to run through what they say. I'm just reading the show. Basically, the way they have it set up is they go through they explain the premise of the show, list the number of episodes, say what made it great, and then the blank versus Raw, of course, fill in the blank with the show that they're doing. I'm just going to read off the blank versus Raw part straight from their website. I'm not going to add anything until but I am going to give my opinion, analyze it when I'm done reading it. So, hopefully this is fun. Hopefully I can actually make some jokes, entertain anyone who watches this. Let's see. Alright. First we got The Simpsons versus Raw. We added the word SmackDown to the American lexicon. None of The Simpsons guest stars ever executed a textbook crossbody or broke a gold record over Heath Slater's head. Oh, and they got the PM, as in Prime Minister, but we got the Queen. And unless Homer snaps and smashes C. Montgomery Burns with a chair, it's still in play, groaning. We think it's safe to say our breakout bald guy versus rich evil boss rivalry had a better payoff. Alright, let's start with the first comparison. People, to understand that, you have to look at the fact that that The Simpsons added the word dough to the American lexicon. Excuse me, I did not do that right. Let me do that again. Dough to the American lexicon, while they added SmackDown. I think this would be better on a SmackDown versus the World list, because even though I know The Rock coined the term, it didn't get added to the American lexicon, because I even remember seeing the story on it until well after the SmackDown TV show was in place, and I think if it wasn't for the TV show, the term might have never reached the popularity that it did. As for none of The Simpsons guest stars ever executed a textbook crossbody or broke a gold record, oh, whatever on that. Who cares? Homer would be reducing himself to take a gold record and break it over Heath Slater's head. And as for the textbook crossbody, I'm not sure, but has anyone ever actually... in the Simpsons wrestling game, don't one of the Simpsons actually do a crossbody? And I know even if they don't, they still wrestle a heck of a lot better than Cena, so... I know, low blow, I'm sorry, I had to get my Cena shot in there. And then as for the Prime Minister in the Queen thing, the Queen of England showed up on Raw, or someone pretending to be the Queen of England showed up on Raw and crowned Michael Cole. Tony Blair, one of the former Prime Minister of England, was actually a legitimate guest star on The Simpsons. Raw, you lose. You can't top that. Not with a fake queen when they actually got the real person. Heck, I could, on my show, get someone to show up and pretend to be the queen and knight me. And it would be bull. But I don't think Tony Blair would ever, or of course the real Queen of England, would ever agree to be on this show. In fact, they probably don't know this show exists. They would probably laugh their heads off or just looked confused. It's actually more likely that they would just look confused. And then the Homer C. Montgomery Burns thing. One, I don't really think that you can say they've really had a feud. I mean, yeah, I know they've shown antagonistic feelings towards each other, but it's not on a regular basis. In fact, there have been some episodes of The Simpsons that kind of show Burns and Homer as kind of friends, a couple of them, even if it's just for the duration of the episode. Because you have to remember, The Simpsons are one of these shows that typically everything returns to normal at the end of the episode. So, yeah. You can't really compare Raw to The Simpsons. And the fact is, what was the payoff to the Vince McMahon Stone Cold feud again? Oh yeah, they become friends. And the only reason why the feud ever resumed is because Austin didn't want Kurt Angle to be the top face. Or that's why the feud resumed. Austin threw a hissy fit because Angle was going to become the face of the company, and they wanted Austin to put Angle over. Austin didn't want to do it, so they ended up turning Austin face again, turned Angle heel, and that was pretty much the end of that. Also, what they seem to have deliberately left out is that The Simpsons know how to do a holiday-themed episode. I mean, the Treehouse of Horrors episodes have actually been some of the most critically acclaimed episodes of The Simpsons, while WWE Raw's holiday-themed shows tend to be the most critically panned even amongst wrestling viewers, not just with the general viewing public. So next you got Law and Order versus Raw. And this is all they got. No incarnation of Law and Order has made it to 1,000 episodes. Raw is still going strong. Well, they got me there, but I would like to say Law & Order gets better ratings than Raw does now. And also, there have been multiple versions of Law & Order, and I think if you add up the episodes of all those seasons of Law & Order, it does reach 1,000. Let's take a look for just a moment, shall we? So, okay. Give me a minute. I actually wrote a couple facts down here. I'm trying to find the file that I put it, well, the paper, whatever, the thing I put it in. Don't I sound very convincing right now? So, the original Law & Order went on for 456 episodes. A very respectable run, by the way. That's not bad at all. Then you go and fetch Criminal Intent. That ran for 195 episodes, so they're up past past 500 now. I think they've cracked 600. My math might be wrong. And then you get the very short-lived Trial by Jury, which ran for 13 episodes, and not a good run at all. I actually remember watching that. It was horrible. Well, it was pretty bad. Then you take LA, which was a pretty big flop, by the way. I was really looking forward to that. And they ran for 22 episodes. And then you take the current series, Law & Order Special Victims Unit. By the way, technically that means Law & Order is still running. And it's ran for 295 episodes. So fine, it hasn't quite touched 1,000 yet, but the fact is, Law & Order is probably going to one day hit 1,000 when you take all the series and put them together. And from what I know, I think all the Law & Order crossovers are in the same universe. I've seen nothing against this, so I'm going to stick with that theory. And if that theory's true, then technically all the Law & Order spin-offs are part of the original series. Technically. It's sort of like, take when WWE renamed took Raw and renamed it Raw as War. Then take the times that didn't appear on Monday, the times that appeared on another episode, when it was preempted for the dog show. And I don't really know where I'm going with this. Okay, fine. You know what? WWE wins that argument. I'm just going to shut up. I just wasted I don't know how much time. But either way, face it. WWE comparing itself to Law & Order, I have a feeling the feeling has ticked a lot of people off anyway. And if their only argument is that they're longer running, well, big whooped. Alright. Seinfeld versus Raw. Their argument, thus far we've avoided the controversial finale syndrome that befell the iconic Seinfeld in its final episode. One, you haven't had a final episode. You can't pull the finale card on Seinfeld yet. If Raw was just yanked off the air and you had a big final episode, then fine, you could pull that card, but you can't. Also, I would like to think that the way they ended Nitro, because if I recall, because the ending to the final episode of Nitro was WWE dictated, you could say that was fairly controversial. Or better yet, the ending to WrestleMania X7, or several WWE pay-per-views, or the ends of several WWE feuds. I've never liked Seinfeld too much, so I'm not the one to really make this argument. But, again, I really can't make the argument. That's really all there is to it. Roseanne versus Raw. Once that final season rolled around, a charming optimism led to a shockingly morose final episode that left viewers divided. And, well, let's just say Mr. McMahon never turned out to be a figment of Kelly's imagination. Oh, my lord. They're really pulling that. They are really pulling that card out. Alright. So, to explain this, you of course have to know about the series finale. Basically, it's revealed that the show is actually a story written by Roseanne Connor about her life. In that Roseanne twisted a lot of the elements of for the story. Oh my lord. Let's just look at how anyone can twist this argument around. Technically, people write every element that happens on WWE Raw. It is very rare to see real things happen on WWE Raw. And I hate using this argument because as a pro wrestling fan, it sickens me a little bit to have to go into this sort of thing. But the fact is, that is a dumb argument, especially if you're going to use this argument to try to sway some of the non-wrestling viewing demographic to try and view your product. And I won't doubt that some pro wrestling fans who send this article out to, and I mean the hardcore pro wrestling fans, the ones who buy everything WWE says, sent this article out to people who do not like pro wrestling, who do not like Raw, to try and prove a point. And when they read that, that's the argument that if they're smart, they'll pull out. So, next up, Lost. Oh, I love this one. Lost versus Raw. We're fans of this show. But we'll say this for Raw in comparison. It's a lot less confusing. Let's be honest here. The closest thing we ever had to a hatch was the Little People's Court. And nobody had to push a button. Also, Ryback could totally take the Smoke Monster. One, Ryback would get his butt kicked by that Smoke Monster. That Smoke Monster was awesome. Even if the finale and the reveal of what he was actually doing was a bit anticlimactic. And two, Raw is confusing. Especially if you tune in mid-storyline. Just like if you tuned in mid-storyline for Lost, you were literally lost. Raw has had a lot of really confusing moments. WWE as a whole has had a lot of really confusing moments, especially if you just started watching. Now, hopefully you get caught up later, but sometimes WWE doesn't really give you enough to really know what's going on. Like, if you ever tuned in during a Boogeyman segment, I bet you were completely lost. Or how about Papa Shango? Or how about when one week you tune in and one guy's a good guy, then you miss a week, then the next week a dude turns face inexplicably. Natalya turned face for me out of nowhere. I have no idea when she turned face. Or is she still face, for that matter? So, another pretty odd, dumb comparison that can be counter-argued, unfortunately. Baywatch versus Raw. What's that now? Sorry, we looked up the intro and forgot what we were talking about. What? That doesn't even make sense. That means they don't have much of a counter argument. Oh, and not to mention, if you think about it, a big part of Baywatch was the eye candy, and WWE's Diva division basically serves as nothing but eye candy at this point. Even though they can't do bra and panties matches. But yet, by the way, can I just point out the sexism that is going on in WWE right now? They are allowed to force men to compete in a match to be stripped out of a tuxedo into their underwear, but women are completely safe from this. It is not right. Okay, let's just move on before I get any heat for something I say. Even though I'm sure I already will. Next, Friends. Seinfeld versus Raw. What would you rather see? Ross, Rachel, Chandler, Monica, or AJ, Punk, Brian, and Kane? Got me there. Can't argue. Next. At least they're getting a couple of these arguments right, to be fair. At least in my opinion. Doctor Who versus Raw. It's true, William Regal can't regenerate, but we'd never presume we could cast anyone to replace him anyway. So, basically what they're saying is William Regal's WWE's version of Doctor Who. That's pretty telling, by the way. And for the record, WWE couldn't cast anyone to replace him. Although, if you want to get technical, William Regal did participate in a Switch Roles match where William Regal was technically Goldust, and Goldust was technically William Regal. So, in a sense, they did that once. In a loose sense. Cheers. Cheers versus Raw. 3 things. 1, Cheers never bought Gary's Old Town Bar. 2, Yes is the new norm. And 3, even Cliff didn't know our Did You Knows. Cliff didn't want to know your Did You Knows. No one cares about your Did You Knows. Yes is not the new norm. I mean, seriously, if you try to get that norm stuff started, people will say norm. If you start screaming yes at a restaurant, unless it's a restaurant full of wrestling fans, no one's going to understand what you're referencing, because Daniel Bryan is not the most well-known name yet. And as for the Gary's Old Town Bar thing, maybe I just am not as well informed to partake in this, but I don't think that makes sense, and either way, the comparison's probably stupid to begin with. Next, WWE SmackDown. SmackDown versus Raw. More blue, although you've got to say, SmackDown hasn't reached 1,000 episodes yet. Wow, if the ratings for SmackDown are any indication, it probably won't reach 1,000 episodes. And also, you are honestly going to go there, you're going to sit there, and basically you're going to try to bash other shows in comparison to Raw. And then you're going to take another TV show, one of your own TV shows, SmackDown, when you promise to put yourself up against some of the episodic classic TV shows, which I don't know how many people are going to say SmackDown is a classic TV show. Although, yeah, fine, wrestling fans, I'm a wrestling fan, so yeah, it is kind of a classic show that WWE is slowly ruining, might I add. But what they said about SmackDown was basically nice in comparison to everything else that they've said. And also, you're actually going to have an ego, and has such a big ego about Raw that you're going to kind of try to trash one of your own shows? Wow. Just wow. You know, why didn't they throw Impact Wrestling on there while they're at it? That would have been fun to watch them do. Oh, actually, I'm a little shocked they didn't do that. In fact, I'm surprised they're not trying to compare themselves with Gunsmoke or Bonanza, since that's the comparison Vince used to always go for. And I'm not kidding, whenever they were getting up there in the episode count, they would begin talking about how they were catching up to Gunsmoke. Oh my lord. So yeah, silly article. It's definitely one of the stupider things I've read on WWE.com for quite a while. So yeah, this is all I have for this episode. Wow, I almost hit the 30-minute mark. I'm a little shocked. I thought this would be a pretty quick trip. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this is Deathedge signing off, and just please remember, and this is what you should take away from all this, don't believe everything Vince McMahon and Titan Towers tries to feed you. Is Vince McMahon a genius? Yes, most definitely. He is a corporate mastermind for the most part. At least in the wrestling business. Whenever he attempts to do something else, it tends to not go so well. That's why you don't usually hear about the XFL or the World Bodybuilding Federation. Actually, you rarely hear about the World Bodybuilding Federation. I think Vince might be more ashamed of that than the XFL. But anyway, this is Deathedge signing off, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. In episode 4, as of right now, is still going to take 222 minutes to upload. Wonderful.